The lights of Hollywood have always shone brightest on those who seem unbreakable, and few stars embody that word quite like Shannen Doherty. Known for her fierce spirit and unforgettable roles in Beverly Hills, 90210, Charmed, and Heathers, she has lived much of her life in the spotlight through triumphs, controversies, and unimaginable pain. But in recent years, her story has become one not of fame, but of fight. When Shannen announced her breast cancer diagnosis, fans around the world watched as she faced a battle that no script could prepare her for. The woman, once known for her toughness on screen, revealed a vulnerability that was somehow even stronger. "I'm not giving up," she told her followers, and she meant it. What followed wasn't just a celebrity health journey, but a powerful message about resilience, courage, and the human will to keep moving forward, even when the odds are cruel. This is the story of a woman who refused to surrender, of how Shannen Doherty turned pain into purpose, silence into advocacy, and fear into unshakable hope. 1. A fighter from the start. Long before her diagnosis, Shannen Doherty had already proven she was built to fight. Born in Memphis, Tennessee, in 1971, she entered show business as a child, appearing on television by age 10. Her big break came as Brenda Walsh on Beverly Hills, 90210, a role that catapulted her into fame and controversy. Shannen's determination, her unwillingness to bend to Hollywood's expectations, made her both admired and misunderstood. She earned a reputation as difficult, but those close to her saw a different truth, a young woman who simply refused to compromise her integrity. That same stubborn independence would one day become her greatest weapon. When doctors told her in 2015 that she had breast cancer, Shannen didn't collapse she planned. She began researching treatment options, asking questions, and documenting her experience openly on social media. Instead of hiding behind press releases, she let the world in bald, exhausted, sometimes scared, but never broken. Her early fight was not only physical, but emotional. She became an advocate for transparency, showing what cancer really looks like, the tears, the fear, and the triumphs that exist side by side. Fans flooded her with support, inspired by her honesty. "I wanted people to see that you can be terrified and still brave," she said. In a culture obsessed with appearances, Shannen's courage shattered illusions. She reminded millions that strength isn't found in pretending you're fine, it's in admitting when you're not and still moving forward. 2. The diagnosis that changed everything. When Shannen Doherty first heard the words, "You have cancer," time seemed to stop. She had gone to the doctor after noticing subtle but persistent changes in her body, expecting reassurance. Instead, she was handed the one thing no one is ever ready for: a battle she hadn't chosen but would have to fight. The initial diagnosis came in 2015, breast cancer. It was early stage, yet aggressive. Shannen faced immediate choices about surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. But more than the physical fear, there was an emotional reckoning. For someone who had spent her life in control, commanding sets, choosing roles, shaping her own image, this was something she couldn't direct or rewrite. "It's strange," she later shared, "because you go from being this independent person to suddenly feeling like your body has betrayed you." Rather than retreating, she leaned in. She began sharing her journey on social media, not for attention but for truth. She posted photos of herself shaving her head, laughing with friends, crying on difficult days, giving her followers permission to feel their own pain too. Fans said it helped them face their own illnesses, seeing that even someone as strong as Shannen could struggle and still stand tall. She called her fight a learning in surrender. It wasn't about giving up, but about letting go of the illusion of control and finding strength in faith, family, and community. She credited her husband, photographer Kurt Iswarienko, and her mother, Rosa, for grounding her during those early months. When her hair began to fall out, she said, "Kurt looked at her with the same love as always." That was when she knew she wasn't just surviving, she was still living. The diagnosis changed her career, her relationships, and her outlook, but more than anything, it stripped life down to what mattered most: love, purpose, and time. 3. The battle behind closed doors. While the world saw snippets of Shannen's strength through social media, the real fight happened in quiet hospital rooms and sleepless nights. Chemotherapy wasn't glamorous, it was brutal. The nausea, the fatigue, the endless waiting rooms, she described them as a blur of hope and dread. Yet, through it all, she refused to let the disease define her. When the cameras weren't rolling, she kept working. Friends from Charmed and 90210 said she used acting as therapy, a way to remind herself that she was more than her illness. "If I could show up to set, memorize lines, and make people feel something," she explained. Then, cancer hadn't taken my spirit. But the battle wasn't just physical, it was financial and emotional. Insurance disputes over her medical coverage added stress to already impossible days. Her marriage also faced strain, as illness often does. The pressure, fear, and unpredictability testing every bond. Yet, her mother and closest friends became her constant companions, holding her hand through chemo sessions and long silences. Shannen documented her experience with a mix of raw honesty and humor. She made videos dancing in hospital gowns, joking about wigs, and finding joy in the smallest victories. "You have to laugh," she said, "because crying doesn't stop the cancer, it just makes your eyes puffy." Behind those smiles, however, were moments of deep despair. She admitted there were nights she prayed, not for healing, but for peace, that if the fight ended, she would have lived with purpose. But each morning, she woke up and chose to keep going. Her mantra became simple: "Not today." That unfiltered bravery made her an unintentional icon, a symbol of endurance for millions battling their own illnesses. Behind the closed doors of her recovery, she wasn't acting anymore. She was living her most important role yet: herself. 4. The recurrence and the reckoning. In 2020, just when it seemed Shannen's cancer had gone into remission, came the word she feared most: it was back. This time, it had spread stage 4, metastatic breast cancer. For many, that would signal surrender. For Shannen Doherty, it ignited something even fiercer. "I'm not done living," she declared. "I'm not done loving or creating." Instead of retreating, she went public again, this time not to inspire, but to normalize. She wanted to show that people living with stage 4 cancer are still living. They work, travel, fall in love, laugh, and dream. She refused to be pitied or defined by statistics. Her openness was revolutionary. In interviews, she spoke about managing exhaustion while filming, about hiding chemo ports beneath costumes, about pushing through pain on set because "work gives me purpose." Her resilience stunned colleagues. One producer said, "She never once complained. She just showed up, even when it hurt." But the recurrence forced deep introspection. Shannen began speaking about mortality not with fear, but with clarity. She discussed legacy, forgiveness, and gratitude. "I used to chase perfection," she said softly. "Now I just want peace." Through it all, she maintained a sense of humor that disarmed everyone around her. On days she felt strong, she posted photos of her dog Bowie or selfies captioned with simple affirmations like, "Still here." Those 2 words carried more power than any speech. Her courage transformed her from actress to advocate. She became a voice for those living with chronic illness, reminding the world that life doesn't stop with diagnosis. It simply changes shape. 5. Redefining strength. For Shannen Doherty, strength wasn't about pretending everything was fine. It wasn't about keeping up appearances or smiling through suffering. It was about acknowledging pain and choosing to rise anyway. "There are days I can't get out of bed," she confessed. "But even on those days, I remind myself that this body, no matter how tired, is still fighting for me." Her definition of strength evolved through vulnerability. She didn't want to be idolized as a hero or pitied as a patient. She wanted to be understood as human. Through candid posts and heartfelt interviews, she broke the taboo surrounding cancer. She showed scars, hair loss, and exhaustion, stripping away Hollywood's gloss and exposing reality. In doing so, she gave thousands permission to be authentic in their own pain. Shannen's transparency became revolutionary because it went against every image Hollywood built around women. She wasn't polished, she was raw. She wasn't performing, she was surviving. Yet, even in fragility, she radiated dignity. Her honesty didn't make her weaker, it made her unshakably powerful. She began collaborating with cancer support organizations, lending her voice to campaigns that encouraged early screening and patient advocacy. She told women not to fear vulnerability, but to use it as a weapon. "If my story helps one person get checked earlier," she said, "then all of this is worth it." Behind the public fight, Shannen continued to seek moments of normalcy, cooking, gardening, watching sunsets with her dogs. She discovered peace in small, ordinary things. "You realize," she reflected, "that life isn't about the big stuff. It's about mornings when you still wake up and people you love are still there." Her battle didn't make her a victim. It revealed her as something far greater, a teacher of endurance, reminding the world that strength isn't loud, it's steady. 6. Love, loss, and the people who stayed illness has a way of revealing truths about others and about yourself. For Shannen, cancer stripped away pretense and left only authenticity. Some relationships grew stronger, others didn't survive the weight of the disease. Her marriage to photographer Kurt Iswaryenko eventually ended, but even in heartbreak, she handled it with quiet grace. "You learn who's in your corner when life gets hard," she said, "and when you find those people, you hold them tight." Her mother, Rosa, became her anchor, the one constant through surgeries, radiation, and the moments in between. Friends like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Brian Austin Green stayed close, providing laughter when it felt impossible to smile. "They've seen me at my weakest," she shared, "and they still see me as strong." That loyalty became her fuel. She also spoke openly about grief, not just the fear of death, but the loss of the person she once was. "You have to mourn the old you," she explained. "The woman who could do everything, who never got tired, who didn't think twice about tomorrow. You let her go, and then you fall in love with who you are now, slower, softer, but still here." Her relationships with fans also deepened. She read their messages, responded to stories, and drew strength from their words. Many were cancer patients themselves, saying her honesty gave them courage. "We lift each other," she wrote once. That's the beauty of being broken open. You connect more deeply. Love, for Shannen, no longer meant perfection. It meant presence. Whether through her mother's embrace, a text from a friend, or a fan's comment from halfway across the world, love became proof that she wasn't alone. In the quietest moments of her fight, love was the thing that kept her choosing to stay. 7. Work is healing. Even in the thick of her illness, Shannen Doherty refused to give up her career. Acting had been part of her identity since childhood, a lifeline she wasn't ready to sever. "Work gives me purpose," she said. "It makes me feel normal." When she returned to television for the Beverly Hills 90210 reboot in 2019, it was more than a nostalgic comeback. It was a declaration that she was still here, still capable, still fierce. Her co-stars recalled her showing up on set during chemotherapy, sometimes visibly weak but determined to perform. "She never asked for sympathy," one castmate said. "She just did her job, like always." Behind the scenes, every day was a test of endurance. Fatigue hit hard, but Shannen's professionalism never wavered. Crew members spoke about how her presence lifted morale. If she could show up and smile, what excuse did any of us have? Filming again gave her a sense of normalcy and control that medicine couldn't. For a few hours a day, she wasn't a patient, she was an artist, and that distinction mattered. "Cancer takes so much," she explained, "but it doesn't get to take me." Outside of acting, Shannen found healing in storytelling itself. She began developing projects about resilience and second chances, using her voice to amplify others' struggles. Her message was always the same: life doesn't end with diagnosis. Through work, Shannen transformed pain into purpose. She proved that surviving isn't about ignoring your illness, it's about living with it. Every line she delivered, every scene she shot, was more than performance, it was defiance. 8. The power of sharing her truth. When Shannen first decided to share her diagnosis publicly, it wasn't for sympathy, it was for connection. She knew millions of people faced cancer in silence, too afraid or ashamed to speak. "If I hide this," she said, "then it wins." That single decision changed everything. By documenting her treatment online, posting photos in hospital gowns, discussing chemo side effects, and even joking through her toughest moments, she shattered the polished illusion surrounding celebrity illness. Her followers didn't just see a famous face, they saw a fellow warrior. Messages poured in from around the world, women scheduling mammograms, families thanking her for their loved ones' courage, patients saying she made them feel seen. Each post carried vulnerability and power. She spoke about the fear of losing her hair, the physical toll of radiation, and the mental struggle of trying to stay hopeful. "Some days, I can't stop crying," she wrote, "but then I remember how many people are still fighting beside me." Those words resonated far beyond Hollywood. Her openness became a form of activism. She reminded people that cancer isn't just statistics, it's people with dreams, humor, and heart. Journalists called her one of the most honest voices in public health awareness, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Through her posts, she built an invisible community of survivors and supporters, a network bound by honesty rather than pity. "We lift each other," she said. "That's what love looks like." By sharing her truth, she gave thousands permission to share theirs. 9. Confronting mortality, embracing life. As her illness progressed, Shannen Doherty began speaking more openly about mortality. But unlike the somber way most discuss death, she approached it with clarity and grace. "I think about dying," she admitted, "but I think about living more." She didn't romanticize her struggle, she faced it with realism and gratitude. "I've accepted that I'm not invincible," she said, "but I still have purpose." That mindset shifted everything. She started writing letters to friends, recording voice notes, and journaling thoughts she wanted remembered. It wasn't morbid, it was her way of honoring time. Her spiritual outlook deepened. She spoke of forgiveness, forgiving herself, forgiving others, and letting go of resentment that no longer served her. "You can't carry anger into a fight like this," she explained. "It's too heavy." Those words hit home for many who realize that healing isn't just medical, it's emotional. Despite the fear and fatigue, Shannen continued to plan for the future. She spoke about directing, about creating projects that told honest stories of survival. Every plan was a rebellion against despair. "Cancer may live in my body," she said, "but it doesn't own my life." Her reflections weren't about death, they were about appreciation for laughter, coffee in the morning, sunsets, her mother's voice. "You stop rushing," she told People magazine. "You start noticing." In confronting her mortality, she didn't lose hope. She found peace, a quiet, powerful acceptance that life's beauty lies in its fragility. 10. A voice for millions. Through her journey, Shannen Doherty became more than a beloved actress. She became a voice for millions living with chronic illness. Her honesty transcended celebrity. It turned her into a symbol of advocacy and empathy. She lobbied for better healthcare access, encouraged early detection programs, and challenged the stigma surrounding terminal diagnoses. "We need to stop treating people with cancer as if they're already gone," she said. "We're still here working, laughing, loving." She began using her platform to amplify others' stories, patients too young, too unheard, too afraid. In every interview, she shifted the focus from herself to the collective. "This isn't just my fight," she reminded audiences. "It's ours." Her courage inspired waves of donations to cancer research foundations and awareness campaigns. But what made her impact profound was its intimacy. Fans didn't just admire her, they felt connected to her humanity. Even when exhaustion overtook her, she found energy to advocate, sometimes from hospital beds, sometimes through emotional Instagram posts that blended humor and honesty. "You don't need to be fearless," she wrote once. "You just need to keep showing up." Her story redefined what it means to be strong. It wasn't about conquering illness, it was about living authentically despite it. 11. Hollywood's strongest survivor. Shannen Doherty has always been a fighter, not just against illness, but against perception. Hollywood is an industry that often discards women the moment they show imperfection. Yet here was Shannen, bearing her scars, her shaved head, and her vulnerability for the world to see. And instead of fading away, she redefined what it meant to be a Hollywood survivor. In the past, tabloids painted her as difficult, a stereotype often reserved for outspoken women who refused to conform. But after her diagnosis, that same fire became the foundation of her strength. Colleagues who once misunderstood her intensity began to see it for what it was: resilience. "Shannen has always been strong," co-star Holly Marie Combs said. "The difference now is people finally see it." She used her platform to highlight how women in entertainment face double standards, especially when dealing with illness. Casting directors often shy away from unreliable actors, but Shannen challenged that stigma. She continued working through treatment, proving that illness didn't erase talent or professionalism. In fact, it deepened her art. "I don't want pity," she said. "I want opportunity." Her story resonated deeply with other women in Hollywood and beyond, those who felt overlooked, underestimated, or judged for their vulnerability. She reminded them that real strength isn't in hiding your battles, it's in facing them publicly with grace. Today, Shannen's name no longer carries the baggage of her early reputation. It carries reverence. She became not just a survivor of cancer, but of an industry that often forgets its heroes. And through her courage, she carved out a legacy that transcends fame, one built on truth, endurance, and a refusal to vanish. 12. Turning pain into purpose. As the years went on, Shannen Doherty transformed her pain into power. She realized her platform wasn't just about survival, it was about service. "If I've learned anything," she said, "it's that we're all here to help each other get through the hard stuff." That realization reshaped her entire mission. She began actively partnering with cancer awareness foundations, using her story to educate others about early detection and emotional resilience. Shannen didn't speak like a celebrity reading a script. She spoke like a woman who'd lived the fight. Her authenticity drew thousands to screenings, fundraisers, and patient networks. But beyond advocacy, she focused on creating art with purpose. She discussed producing documentaries about the mental toll of cancer and writing a memoir that would help others find hope in darkness. She said she wanted her life to remind people that strength and softness can coexist, that you can cry and still be brave. Her openness also opened dialogues about the realities of long-term illness, medical bills, mental health, and the quiet isolation that comes with chronic pain. "People think you fight once and it's over," she explained. "But this fight never really ends. You just learn how to live better with it." Her presence online became a sanctuary for others. She responded to followers' messages, celebrated their victories, and grieved their losses. Fans often said she made them feel less alone, that she was living proof hope could coexist with hardship. By sharing her journey without filters, Shannen transformed her platform into a safe space for millions. She turned pain into purpose not by escaping it, but by walking straight through it and lighting the path for others to follow. 13. A legacy of courage. There's a rare kind of courage that doesn't roar, it whispers. It shows up day after day, even when the body aches and the future feels uncertain. That's the kind of courage Shannen Doherty embodies. Hers isn't cinematic bravery filled with grand speeches and miracles. It's the quiet kind, waking up to another round of treatment, another doctor's appointment, another uncertain tomorrow, and still saying, "I'm not giving up." Through her honesty, Shannen has changed how people view illness, strength, and survival. She gave cancer a human face, one that smiles, struggles, and still dares to dream. Her willingness to live publicly through pain allowed others to face their own with dignity. Her story isn't just about endurance, it's about evolution. The once fiery actress who fought Hollywood stereotypes has become something far more powerful, a symbol of hope. She has taught millions that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. When asked what keeps her fighting, Shannen once replied, "Love. I still have people to love. I still have things to say." That simple truth sums up her legacy. It's not built on fame or fortune, but on faith. Faith in herself, in others, and in the belief that no battle is ever truly lost if you keep showing up. Her journey will be remembered not as a tragedy, but as a triumph of the human spirit. Through grace, honesty, and defiance, Shannen Doherty has become what she's always been: a warrior, a woman of heart, and a reminder that even in the darkest storms, the light never truly goes out. 14. Hope in the midst of uncertainty. Even as her illness progressed, Shannen Doherty refused to live in fear. Every update she shared carried both realism and optimism, a combination that made her words so powerful. "Yes, I have cancer," she said, "but I'm still living. I'm still dreaming." That phrase became a mantra for countless others navigating the same darkness. Hope, for Shannen, wasn't about denial. It was about choosing to find beauty in small victories. A good scan, a pain-free morning, a laugh that reminded her she was still herself. She began speaking openly about redefining hope. "It's not about being cured," she said. "It's about being present." That presence was visible in her life's details. She posted photos of her garden, her rescue dogs, her quiet mornings with coffee. Fans saw not a celebrity in crisis, but a woman savoring life's simplest gifts. Each post felt like a reminder that hope isn't a destination, it's a daily decision. Doctors spoke with admiration about her willpower, often calling her attitude as healing as any treatment. Her honesty made even the medical community take notice of how mindset influences recovery. "She's teaching people how to live," one oncologist noted, "not just how to fight." Shannen's ability to speak about death without surrendering to it turned fear into wisdom. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like," she said, "but I know I want to meet it with love." Those words resonated deeply because they weren't abstract, they were lived truth. In her quiet defiance, she reminded the world that hope is not about ignoring pain, but about standing inside it and refusing to let it define you. 15. The woman who never stopped fighting. To this day, Shannen Doherty continues her battle not just against cancer, but against despair. Her resilience has become her greatest performance, not because it's dramatic, but because it's real. She once said, "If I wake up, I win." That single sentence sums up her philosophy. Every sunrise is victory, every breath a reminder that she is still here. She's not just surviving, she's leading. Through her platform, she continues to advocate for research, funding, and mental health support for cancer patients. She gives interviews not to gain sympathy, but to give strength. "I don't want people to look at me and see illness," she said. "I want them to see possibility." Even as she navigates treatments, fatigue, and uncertainty, Shannen continues to work, plan, and love. Her voice remains steady, her laughter intact, her faith unshaken. She's become a symbol not of celebrity endurance, but of universal courage, the kind that transcends fame and connects with the soul. Her journey has shown that bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as getting out of bed, making tea, and whispering, "I'm still here." And through that quiet, Shannen has become a beacon for those who feel invisible in their pain. She doesn't call herself a hero, she calls herself human. But in her humanity lies the very thing the world needs most: hope wrapped in honesty. Outro. Shannen Doherty's story is not one of tragedy, it's one of transformation. She faced an illness that tried to take everything and instead turned it into a platform for compassion, awareness, and strength. Her life today is a living testament to the power of perseverance and authenticity. Through every setback, she's taught us that courage isn't about conquering fear, it's about walking with it. She's shown that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's truth in its purest form. And perhaps most importantly, she's proven that a diagnosis doesn't define a life choices do. As her journey continues, so does her impact. Millions have found courage in her transparency, comfort in her honesty, and faith in her fight. Because every time she speaks, she reminds the world of one unshakable truth: that even in pain, there is purpose, and even in uncertainty, there is light. If Shannen's story moved you, take her message forward, get screened, support someone fighting, and never stop believing in the strength of the human spirit. Like, comment, and subscribe to honor those who keep showing up, even when life tries to knock them down. Because as Shannen Doherty says, "I'm not giving up, and neither should you."